Let me pull it up here. Okay, we're recording now, and I'm pulling up the Module 5 discussion. This one was pretty easy. Okay, so actually, I won't even share my screen for the discussion because the way the discussions work, obviously, I can't just pull up. Well, I'll try. Let me see. Anyway, the overall thing about this discussion that I wanted to give feedback for was not much to say because this one was so straightforward, and it's like not usually with these things I have a lot of things to say with feedback regarding like learning moments and things like that. And for this, there wasn't much of a learning moment, right? You just watch the video and place blame on somebody. So I'll just address the grading issues I saw off the top of my head before I even look. A lot of times people a few people just didn't blame somebody. So you would obviously lose points. That was the whole purpose, like finding someone to blame. And the big thing was you needed to defend your position. So, at least you should have a sentence saying, I think it was the mill, the person who runs the mill, I think it's their fault, and here's why, in like one sentence at least. But even that you lose points for. Like I know there's no minimum, but like, you can tell like when people had like three sentences on the post, they might have lost some points because the idea is to defend your position. So look things up, like say why you think this person's to blame. And some people did a really good job of that and say, well, they look things up and they say, oh, there was a lawsuit at this time, which indicates that, that's why you really should place blame on so-and-so. Otherwise, why would they get sued and things like that? And then really quickly, I guess that just reminded me of one thing I would say, learning moment wise. It's a good thing to think about. This is a interesting situation where when in your own life, when you decide what the government should and should not do regarding, anything, but obviously the environment in this course, you have to ask yourself, like, at what point do we wait for something to bad happen and then fix it? Right. Which is what happened with Denora, or are we proactive as opposed to reactive? And obviously, in my opinion, I generally support being proactive as opposed to reactive. But even then, like to what extent? Like how safe do we need to make things? So that's that balance. Going back to what we talked about since the beginning of the semester, like you need to make your own decisions about environmental biology. Then this course is just going to give you the feedback, or excuse me, the background to make those informed decisions. Informed being the key word. Like you should be informed. So I guess that's my only big picture thing I wanted to talk about. So that being said, I'm going to pull up your specific discussion. And while I'm pulling that up, do you have any specific questions about the discussion?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Let's see. They all say week 5 discussion. Some of these I can only see first name and not last name. I'm sorry. What is your first name?
Amber. Cunningham is the last name.
There we go. Yeah. Well, my brain is still sometimes stuck in the military, and I call people by their last name. So I'm not saying the first. Okay, discussion week 5. So I'm pulling yours up. Actually, before I even read yours, that's just as a discussion. What was your opinion? And sorry, go ahead. Yeah, what was your opinion? Who was to blame?
I feel like the federal government should have set regulations prior to the steel mill being allowed to operate. I think that would have helped alleviate some of the issues. If there would have been regulations in place and being more proactive, then maybe it wouldn't have gotten to that point. But with the supervisor reluctantly taking blame, obviously he's to blame as well, because he should have been able to follow proper procedures and know clearly there are people dying. So why are you continuing to keep going? The smoke is coming from your area.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I like your response. And you could bring that back to one of the first discussions we have based on duty-based ethics. That guy he didn't do anything wrong. There was no rules. He did not break any rules. Therefore, he's good to go, right? Didn't break any rules according to duty-based ethics. I was hoping somebody would bring that up and, bring back one of those ethical points of view. I was like, well, according to this, but that never happened, because that would have been interesting, consequence-based ethics versus virtue-based. Unless he intended to do it, for example, by virtue-based ethics, then there was nothing wrong. You could argue with that. But anyway, and another thing, another follow-up question to your opinion is that a strong opinion, or is it just because you were forced to come up with an opinion?
I mean, I probably wouldn't have even known about that unless it was part of this discussion. I had not heard about that previously, but I will say, like, once I did see it in the discussion, I kind of dug a little deeper and read some more articles on it just because I was curious. But I mean, I feel like that's a pretty strong opinion. Honestly, I feel like the environment is precious to us, and if we have more regulations and people are being held accountable, I think that we could really protect our ozone and our environment as a whole.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, you bring a good point. Again, going back to that thing we were talking about in chapter 1, this whole idea of different types of ethics. You were saying the environment is something we should protect, and that would be like an ecocentric, right? Just because it has intrinsic value itself. But even that, and I like to bring this up throughout the semester, even if you're not one of those people who think that has intrinsic values, like we humans, right? Even just to protect us, we have to protect the environment. And that's a great example of that. Is sometimes it can kill us. So I just pulled up your post just so it can be on the screen as we're talking. And there's nothing much to say. You got full credit. So I just wanted to put it up there. That way, if anybody watches this video, they can read it and see an example of a post that got full credit. So, and I could pull up your responses unless you just want to, if you happen to remember them off the top of your head, what your 2 responses were about.
I can't remember off the top of my head now.
Okay. Let me look them up. Let me stop presenting for a second. And another thing, I guess, again, overall feedback, not specifically for you. One of the things I saw with the responses was that, again, just like the first one, they weren't really defending their position. Some of them didn't even have the one sentence to say, I think this because of this, which you would lose more points. But then the other ones, again, you needed to really defend your position. Give some examples. Why do you believe this?
I try to be very diplomatic in my responses.
Yes. Yeah, that, you know what I have to say too, again, for anybody reading or watching this, everybody's done great for that. I love it. Especially because it kind of has that online social media feel. Yet I've not seen anybody be disrespectful, and I'm very proud and appreciative of that. All right, let me look up something else here really quickly, and then we might be able to move on to the next one. My computer's a little slow. Sorry for the wait.
Oh, you're fine.
While I'm pulling it up, do you have any other general questions that might be good to record for the sake of you and or your classmates?
I don't think so. I think this lab was a little more. I've loved all of the labs so far. Literally,
cool.
Like they've been my favorite things about the class. This lab was a little more eye-opening to me because I like just looking up the different air qualities. Like some places I thought would be awful turned out to be better than like my area. So I think that was a little eye-opening to me.
And that's a good time to mention, for me to mention. AQI has changed drastically. It's a lot like the weather as opposed to the climate. Climate's kind of a bigger picture thing. Weather is very day to day. AQI is like that too. So if anyone's interested, you should occasionally check out the AQI where you are in different places and see how they change drastically. If you were to do that lab today as opposed to when you did it last week, you probably get completely different results.
Yeah,
that's just something worth noting. All right, so I tried to pull up the grades for your grades for the discussion. I know you got full credit for your post, but I can't. My computer's being slow, so I can't see what you have for your responses. But like you said, you don't have any questions about your discussion responses?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so we'll just jump into the lab then. All right. And in my opinion, this is a pretty easy lab. There was a few questions that a lot of people missed, not because they were hard. They were just a little bit tricky. And I don't want to say I did that on purpose, but I realized they were tricky and I left them in there on purpose. That's a better way of saying it. Let's see. Ta-da.
I think the only one that really confused me with this lab was in what other ways.
Yes.
That really confused me. I even saw that on your feedback and I was like, I honestly have no clue. So
that was a common mistake. Actually, whoops. Let me just pull up yours if you don't mind.
Oh no, I don't mind.
that was a common mistake. And I'm always torn with these questions between giving you the question and not being like just, if you give too many details, it just gets overwhelming. And you'll see some of my questions are like that. There's just so many details. And it's just always hard for me because that's one of those questions where like, how much do I write to explain what the question is? And I just decided to go with keep it simple because, and I get this is a good time for me to remind you of this, labs are not like exams. I'm not testing you to see what you know. You do not have to go at these labs alone. You can come like we're meeting right now. I'll sit here and just sit here in silence as you do your lab. And that way, if you have a question, you're like, oh, hey, by the way, I'm working on number 7. And can you clarify that for me? You can do that. And then also, obviously, the other thing is after you make a mistake, you can always fix it for full credit as long as you do it before the due date. And then you could also fix it for half credit as long as it's or anytime after the due date. So that's, again, one of the reasons why I'm so, I don't want to say picky, but yeah, maybe. Because first of all, it's not worth that many points. You're not losing that many points. And second, you can come to me for help. And third, you're allowed to correct your mistakes. So anyway, yeah, let's look at that. What I was getting at was kind of this idea, the relationship between a prediction and a hypothesis, or a hypothesis and a prediction. So, a hypothesis is a tentative answer to a question that you can test. So in this case, the question would be, right, like, is the air quality better where I am or in Anchorage? That's a question. So a hypothesis could be, like you said, due to high elevation, the air quality would be better in Anchorage versus West Virginia. So that's a proper hypothesis. Now, from that one hypothesis, you can, and in real life, should come up with many predictions, because a prediction is a way of describing how you're going to test your hypothesis. So in this case, if I was asking you for a prediction, it should say, if I were to look up the AQIs in Anchorage and West Virginia, then I would find that the AQI, the air quality is better in Anchorage than West Virginia. Does that make sense? It's like I've restated your hypothesis, but in a way where I'm describing how I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Which brings me to question 13. Because then in a real life situation, if you're really testing a hypothesis scientifically, then you would come up with another way. It's like, okay, the AQI says this, because like I just mentioned, and like you said earlier, you were surprised about the results, right? Well, the AQI changes frequently. So another thing you can do is, and this is just one example, you could say something like, if I were to look up the incidences of lung cancer for people who live in Anchorage versus lung cancer for people who live in West Virginia, or sorry, I'm saying it in a prediction. So sorry. Specifically for question 13, you could say you could look up the incidences of lung cancers in these two places, or you could go to those places and do your own tests, right? You can test it yourself, or you could look up the incidences of asthma, or you could look up, and I haven't taught you guys this, but I don't think it's in the textbook. Maybe it is. Anyway, there's some species of plants that are more susceptible to pollution, right? So you can look up to see if there's any of those sensitive plants. Compare those. Like, are there more sensitive plants in this area or that area? So that was a hard question, and it was almost unfair. But again, I encourage people to ask me, and had anybody asked me, I could have walked them to that answer. And even though I've just given you the answer, you can still go back and fix it and get partial credit. So there's that too. But anyway, so that was question 13. This is another small mistake people made right here. They just didn't put their location, and that's not even a big deal. But you know what? Like I have had little things like that throughout the semester, and that might be the difference between an A student and a B student. But again, you can still go back and fix that. And
I was gonna say I will go back and fix it. Yeah. I did not even catch that. I put in my zip code, but I did not even catch that.
Easy to fix, easy mistake to make too. So don't feel bad if you did. Another one that a lot of people missed and you didn't was these last two questions, 24 and 25. It's a multi-part question. Which location had the best air quality? Most people got that part, but then it says, and what was it? So they didn't do that part. And again, I know it's nitpicky, but it's not that many points. It's not a game changer, and you can fix it. So again, all these little things throughout the semester just might be the difference between an A student and a B student. And especially, like you said, you're going to fix it. So that will be the difference between a student who just accepts their grade and somebody who like pushes to fix their grade. And then for your, what did I put the X over? So the big thing with graphs, make sure you label them. And I know common sense tells me that those numbers on the left-hand side are the AQI.
Okay.
I know that.
So I just need to put that's the AQI on the left.
Yes, and then I'm trying to figure out what the problem was down here. Oh yeah, that's right. As soon as you accidentally mislabeled it, you put AQI on the x-axis. Of course, I do see that color is Alum Creek and that color is Seattle, and that was good. You can keep that.
Okay.
And again, I mean, that's not a big deal. And in all actuality, I think someone could read that graph and figure out what you're trying to say. But for point's sake, you lost the 2 points there.
Okay.
They're very easy to fix, and you can still do it. And again, for as far as the overall feedback is concerned, like all the students, I think we covered all the common mistakes. Didn't put in the location, confused by question 13, and didn't quite answer all the last 2 questions with the whole also include the AQI. And then in some of them, sorry, and this wasn't you, but for some people, for anybody watching this, every single one of those questions is at least 2-part, right? Like, was your hypothesis correct?
Mm-hmm.
Which one was better? So some people didn't do both parts. My hypothesis was correct. This place was better. I think that's it. Oh yeah, and then this. People are still doing this. And again, I know it's nitpicky, but it's easy to fix. Save it as a PDF before you upload it. As a matter of fact, some people, this is the first lab that I think, where if you don't save it as a PDF, it messes you up. So your table right here looks great. Other people's tables are missing a lot of information. And I know from experience, it's not because they didn't do it. It's because when they uploaded it, not as a PDF, that a lot of their information went missing. And this is why all semester I've been giving points away for saving it as a PDF, because I knew eventually it would come back to be actually important. So anyway, any questions then about the lab?
I don't think so.
All right. So that's lab, discussion. Quizzes are pretty straightforward. So do you have any questions, feedback about anything else?
No, I'm hoping to do better on the next exam, and I still need to retake the other exam. But thank you for sending the study guide a little earlier, so I'll be able to better prepare. But no, I don't think so.
All right. That reminds me, I need to post the extra credit thing in this week's discussion so people can talk to them, get help as they need it. And again, I'll remind you and anybody watching this video, I know that the questions are really weird. I have to do that so people can't cheat. But if you need more time, do what we're doing right now. Meet me online, as I can see you. Like I can see you. Well, right now you're seeing my screen, but we could flip that. If I can see you, and I can hear you, and I can see your screen, I don't care how long it takes, because then I can make sure that you're not looking things up. That's the only reason they're timed exams, is because I don't want you to be able to look up every single question. So, yeah, that's it. All right. And I guess if you don't have anything else, I would just remind you to email me and say, hey, we met. Please apply the 10% boost. It's 10% for you because we recorded it. 10% boost to my grades. That'll remind me, and it'll give me a paper trail. I love paper trails. All right. Well, then I guess if that's it, then I'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
No problem. Have a good one.
All right. You too. Bye.